You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Good afternoon. You're listening to the Holiday Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network, and I'm Matt Holloway. Got a lot of stories to go over. Today is June 1st in the year of our Lord 2017, and we need to talk about making stupid people famous. We also need to talk about Covfefe, whatever that means. And we're also going to discuss honesty in correspondence from your political parties. All that and more on the HoloNet Podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around.
Lanterns authorization code accepted. Logging in. Your access to the HoloNet has been approved. Please stand by. You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. And from Phoenix, Arizona, I'm Matt Holloway. Today has been one of the longest days in my many years of watching the news. For two reasons. Covfefe and Kathy Griffin. Two very, very big reasons to just completely avoid the news media for the next 24 to 48 hours. But by all means, please continue to read and listen to all the great product on lanterns.buzz. We want to make sure that you're getting the best information available and probably some of the smartest reactions to these two quote-unquote stories. So the story on Covfefe is this. Last night, President Donald Trump tweeted out a very cryptic tweet that said, "Despite the constant negative press, Covfefe," spelled Covfefe. Now, the word coined in his misspelling took Twitter by storm and just dominated the internet. And the hits are still coming. I mean, people are accusing it of being a drunk tweet. People are saying, why was this left up there? It's been up for 45 minutes. It was actually up there for quite some time. I myself could not locate the tweet. I think it's since been taken down. But it's become a bit of a joke, and it appears that the White House is laughing along with everybody else. But, of course, the left is taking this as just yet another opportunity to poke a lot of fun at the President of the United States and just the Republican Party in general, and Donald Trump in specific. What it does bring into sharp relief is, what are the long-term consequences of the President of the United States having stream of consciousness tweets? Just tweeting out whenever something hits him. Now, I really enjoy the fact that this is the 21st century and that we no longer per se need to have a filter in place or a third party in between to have an earnest discussion with our leaders. I can tweet President Donald Trump right now. Odds are he probably won't see it. He gets inundated with hundreds of thousands of tweets every day. But he can tweet. He tweets back, and he tweets on the fly. I love this about this president. I say every president needs to be on Twitter. Every president needs to be on Facebook. Every single representative in both houses of Congress, in the state legislatures, well, believe it or not, my state legislatures for the most part are, and I love it, all of our representatives need to be on social media. They need to be all over social media. Why? Because we need to have direct access to them. Because this gives the people the greatest opportunity to influence their legislators in history. It used to be, not too long ago, you needed to buy some very expensive dinner plates, like $500 plate at a fundraiser, to get 5 minutes with your congressman. Sitting down with a sitting president, my God, that could cost you thousands. Whatever the going rate is for the best lobbyist in Washington. But today in 2017, that's not the case. Today, I can get on Twitter. I can get on Facebook. And you know, however small it is, there's a chance, a real chance, that President Donald Trump will read it and will respond to it. Hell, there's a pretty big chance that my congressman will answer. That was if Trent Franks ever actually caught on to the whole social media thing. Same thing with John McCain. Same thing with Jeff Flake, although he's quite a bit younger, so I don't really know what his excuse is. But I will say this. When I look at a Republican candidate now, into the future, I want to know what their social media savvy looks like. I want to know, is it really them on the other side of that tweet? On the other side of that Facebook post? Or is it some college intern that they're paying $9.95 an hour to do? Oh, I'm sorry. In most states now, it's $15. I want to know, are they really directly accessible? And like I said, I can say with pride that my state level representatives, oh God, you can get them on Twitter easy. You can get them on Facebook like that. I'll go ahead and I'll call him out. Now State Senator Steve Montenegro, you can get him on Facebook in about 5 minutes. He usually answers pretty fast on the snap. Darren Mitchell, my state representative, and Don Shooter to a lesser extent because Don's a cowboy. He's out in Yuma and he's a country kind of dude. But you can get these guys. Heck, Mitchell answers like in 2 minutes. And I know he's got other things to do. He's got a business to run because Arizona representatives don't get paid squat. They get paid nothing. I seriously think, I swear to God, when I worked at a big blue store, large blue store, sells electronics, hashtag not a sponsor, when I worked for them, I'm pretty dang sure I made more than Darren Mitchell makes from the state of Arizona. Okay, let's put that out there. They make like $24,000 and I think like $35 a day per diem. I'll double check myself on that, but I think that's pretty dang close to accurate. They might make $28,000 at the outside, maybe. And their availability is phenomenal. Doug Ducey, El Duce, the Deuce, not to be confused with Mussolini. Doug Ducey, governor of Arizona, he is quick on the snap on Twitter and Facebook as well. And of course, a lady who I look forward to personally having as a senator representing the state of Arizona in the United States Senate, Dr. Kelly Ward, who I've come to know pretty well over the past couple of years, and I've come to respect greatly, she is a absolute master of the social media arts. She's incredible on Facebook and on Twitter. Quick on the snap, ready to answer, videos constantly. I mean, there are more Facebook Live videos of Dr. Kelly Ward running around out there. I don't know how McCain stood a chance last time. I think it was purely on name recognition, but Jeff Flake, I think, could be in some trouble. Now, I want you to remember those two names, Dr. Kelly Ward and Jeff Flake, because we're going to come back to that. I've been talking to the Ward campaign. I'm going to try very hard to get an interview with Dr. Kelly Ward, make that work with the schedule. I got to reach out to her people. And I'm also going to try to get an interview going with Senator Jeff Flake. We'll see if he answers, although he is notoriously difficult to get an interview with. I spoke to one of the leading media personalities here in the Phoenix market. He's had him on one time. And I think that's when he was running. So I'm not going to hold my breath or count to 10. But yeah, we're going to come up on that. But Covfefe, setting the internet all aflame. I'll grant you some of the jokes are pretty funny. But, you know, let's not make a typo more than a typo. The downside of having a president who tweets stream of consciousness and having that access level and having that availability is occasionally somebody's gonna basically butt text. Somebody's gonna tweet something with a typo or something's gonna look stupid. It's real life, folks. And we're talking about somebody so busy they don't necessarily have time to go back in and hit the edit on a Facebook post like I do frequently, or go back and delete a tweet and resend it the right way. It happens. It's gonna happen. Get used to it. Because the days of a president who sits cloistered in the Oval Office and looks down from his Ivy Tower on the rest of the country, Ivy Tower. I took Ivy League and Ivory Tower and combined them. No, looks down from the Ivory Tower at the rest of us peons and doesn't get down into the social media muck with us. Those days are long past, because the American people demand all access. Now, when we come back, I'm going to need to take an Excedrin. Hashtag not a sponsor either. Although, hey, I would definitely take their money because I've paid them enough over the years. We have to do it. I have to address it. I called my director, Dylan Lyles. He also hosts Defenders of American Exceptionalism. And I told him, Dylan, I've got to do a segment on Kathy Griffin. I have no choice. It's everywhere. To quote another Griffin, Peter Griffin, it's everywhere. It's in my raccoon wounds. You can't get away from this story. It's all over the place. It was the first thing that greeted me when I opened my phone this morning at 5 in the morning. Well, not 5 in the morning. I was driving then. At 4 in the morning. When I opened up my phone, I see the what appears to be the decapitated head of the President of the United States held by a stunned-looking aged comic. Which I'm sorry, I get to say that now. She was born in 1960. But, oh man, is this getting ridiculous. So we're going to address the Kathy Griffin decapitated Trump head picture controversy when we come back from this brief break. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around. We'll be right back.
I've thought a bit of the shining city upon a hill. The phrase comes from John Winthrop, who wrote it to describe the America he imagined. What he imagined was important because he was an early pilgrim, an early freedom man. He journeyed here on what today we call a little wooden boat, and like the other pilgrims, he was looking for a home that would be free. I've spoken of the shining city all my political life, but I don't know if I ever quite communicated what I saw when I said it. But in my mind, it was a tall, proud city built on rocks stronger than oceans, windswept, God-blessed, and teeming with people of all kinds living in harmony and peace. A city with free ports that hummed with commerce and creativity. And if there had to be city walls, the walls had doors, and the doors were open to anyone with the will and the heart together. That's how I saw it and see it still.
I want the people of America to be able to work less for the government and more for themselves. I want them to have the rewards of their own industry. This is the chief meaning of freedom. Until we can reestablish a condition under which the earnings of the people can be kept by the people, we are bound to suffer a very severe and distinct curtailment of our liberty.
We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. And if, which I do not for a moment believe, this island or a large part of it was subjugated and starving, then our empire beyond the seas, armed and guarded by the British fleet, would carry on the struggle until, in God's good time, the new world, with all its power and might, steps forth to the rescue and the liberation of the old.
All levels of income are better off than they were in 1979. But what the honourable member is saying is that he would rather the poor were poorer, provided the rich were less rich. That way you will never create the wealth for better social services as we have. And what a policy! Yes, he would rather have the poor poorer, provided the rich were less rich. That is the liberal policy. Yes, it came out, he didn't intend it to, but he did.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. And let me remind you also that moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue.
The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now, with you. Here we hold the line against the night. You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
All right, we're back. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. If you want to find us online, you can find us at theholonet.com, our brand new domain. Again, that is theholonet.com. Also, holonet.lanterns.buzz. You also find us on the homepage of lanterns.buzz. Also have some great stories there that we've put together for you. And on Facebook, we are at facebook.com/TheHollowNet. Tweet at The HollowNet or at Matt D. Holloway. Lots of ways to connect. So I'd love to hear from you online. So check us out on social media. Now, speaking of online, we've got to get to this Kathy Griffin business. We got to get to it right out front and get it over with. And I'm going to start with this statement that I've heard from many friends. Chief among them was Will Bloodworth a couple years ago. Stop making stupid people famous. I mean it. Stop making stupid people famous. Because you know what Kathy Griffin just did? She just took all the heat off of the Cash Me Outside, how about that girl? That is no longer the dumbest thing I've ever seen on the internet. Kathy Griffin has effectively eclipsed her. So, just a quick look here on the interwebs, and on Fox News, there are no less than 5 stories pertaining to the Kathy Griffin scandal. On theblaze.com, there are 3. There are 3 on MSNBC, and only 1 on CNN. CNN, who recently announced she will be terminated from the 2017 New Year's Eve show. So CNN has fired Kathy Griffin as a result of her photo shoot depicting a decapitated President Trump. Now, if you haven't been on lanterns.buzz before, we have a really awesome site there. And the way it's laid out, there's actually a carousel of images that roll through. It's about 10 images, and it's our top trending stories. Proud to say that usually the HollowNet podcast and the HollowNet articles are usually there. I haven't written in a couple of days, so there aren't any there right now. But we have 10 slots that it rotates through gradually as you sit there on the website. And right now, 3 of them, even on lanterns.buzz, 3 of those stories are about Kathy Griffin. So you can check it out. Oliver Stevenson writes, should Kathy Griffin be fired for her actions? Josie Jackson wrote, has Kathy Griffin just tanked her career? 3 cheers for Squatty Potty. So, yeah, I had to apply the canned laughter for that just absolutely god-awful pun. That was awesome, Josie. Has Kathy Griffin just tanked her career? 3 cheers for Squatty Potty. Okay, and let's also not ignore another great headline out there, which is, let's see, Squatty Potty dumps Kathy Griffin. Oh, yeah. See what they did there? See what they did? They used dump and tank, and they're talking about a potty. Isn't that awesome? Man, they really know what the American people want. When we see a picture of the president decapitated, we want a bunch of crap jokes. Yeah! I love it. Consider this. There's an old saying that, bless me, I have not been able to attribute, that there's no such thing as bad publicity. There's no such thing as bad publicity. Oscar Wilde said, the only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about. And Kathy Griffin, a self-proclaimed D-lister, is getting more press right now for this stunt than she has since she dropped an F-bomb live on CNN in 2007. That's right, this is the most press she's gotten in a decade. So stop making stupid people famous. Seriously, it is getting out of hand. We're going to go real quick to audio of Kathy Griffin's apology story where she tweeted, I am sorry, I went too far, and I was wrong. And you tell me if this rings sincere to you.
Hey everybody, it's me, Kathy Griffin. I sincerely apologize. I am just now seeing the reaction of these images. I'm a comic. I cross the line. I move the line. Then I cross it. I went way too far. The image is too disturbing. I understand how it offends people. It wasn't funny. I get it. I've made a lot of mistakes in my career. I will continue. I asked your forgiveness, taking down the image, going to ask the photographer to take down the image, and I begged for your forgiveness. I went too far. I made a mistake, and I was wrong.
So Kathy Griffin says she went too far, she made a mistake, and she was wrong. Now, I'm not going to lie, if you watch this video, a good friend of mine said it wasn't very flattering. He said she looked like a redheaded Gene Simmons. I don't share that view, but definitely not her best here. I mean, this looks like it was shot probably in her home, potentially in the bathroom. I don't know. That looks like it might be a really expensive Moen sink behind her. But there's a certain franticness, a certain panicky tone to her voice, like realizing that this is blowing up completely out of control. I mean, when Melania Trump, the First Lady, is ripping you a new one via the internet, and the president is referencing how disturbed his 11-year-old son was, and Barron Trump is trending number 2 on Twitter right now. Kathy Griffin stopped trending 20 hours ago, but now Barron Trump is trending on Twitter. That tells you something. As far as sincerity, you know what this feels like to me? This feels like hashtag sorry not sorry. It really does. Like, you're not sorry that you did it. This was deliberate. This was calculated. This was planned. This was a publicity stunt. What you're sorry about is probably some of the negative backlash that you're getting. Like, note what she said. I saw the reactions. I'm just seeing the reactions. So you're not sorry you did it. You're not sorry for the right reasons. You're sorry you're probably getting bloody death threats. And God knows what else. Now, I'm not saying send this woman death threats. I wish her no harm. And I wholly support and will fight for her First Amendment right to express herself and make a fool of herself on the international stage. But I don't buy this I'm sorry video. I really don't. You know why? Is there's a little song by a band called Fall Out Boy. If you're not a fan, not everybody is, but it's definitely my kind of music. And it's called I Don't Care. I'm going to play a little clip from it right now because I think this really kind of sets it up and gives you an idea of what's going on with Kathy Griffin's popularity right now. I don't care what you think, as long as it's about me. Boy, that says it, doesn't it? I mean, that's one of my favorite Fall Out Boy songs, so I'm half tempted to sing it for you badly, but I'm pretty sure I'd lose half of my listening audience, which would bring me down to a gerbil. But I don't care what you think, as long as it's about me. And the best of us can find happiness in misery. So think about that. Wrap your head around that. You make this massive publicity stunt. You have an entire photo shoot. You know how long that must have took to set up? And you put these photos out there. And right now, strictly in a marketing sense, Kathy Griffin is one of the hottest things out there right now. Lighting the internet on fire. Because love her or hate her, right now you can't avoid her. She's everywhere. It's more play than she's had since I was in high school. Stop making stupid people famous. With that, we're going to come back in a minute to rather disturbing notice that my family received in the mail. And this is the second time I've done this. I posted a great big Facebook post that hit 20,000 people last year. And man, the Republican Party has done it again. So we'll talk about this notice, this audit form from the Republican National Committee when we come back. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. I'm Matt Holloway. Stick around. Are you ready to join the millennial conservative resistance? Log on to www.theholonet.blogspot.com for all that you need to know. There you'll find stories, opinions, videos from the HoloNet, and also new contributors bringing voices you wouldn't expect on topics you wouldn't imagine. That's theholonet.blogspot.com. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins right here, right now, with you.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
And we're back. Thanks for sticking around. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. I'm Matt Holloway here in Phoenix, Arizona. So this past week, a rather official-looking notice arrived in the mail at the Holloway household. This was actually addressed to my wife, Mrs. Holloway. It says on the top, with a Republican National Committee seal, mind you, Election Audit Affiliation Confirmation. And when I took a look at the envelope, my first thought, and actually the first words out of my mouth, were, what the... So, here's how it reads. Dear Mrs. Holloway, please confirm that you were a Republican voter in the November 2016 16th election, registered at our address, by completing and returning the attached Election Audit Republican Affiliation Confirmation Card by no later than April 14th. So number one, the dopey thing arrived late. Your confirmation is a critical component of the post-election voter audit and analysis we are undertaking, because the Democrats are attempting to challenge the legitimacy of our mandate and ultimately overturn our victory by the next election, less than 20 months from today. Their goal is to recruit millions of new unregistered voters in key swing districts across the nation. We cannot allow this challenge to go unmet. That is the purpose of this mailing. Our party won a sweeping, resounding nationwide victory, electing Donald J. Trump to the White House, winning both houses of Congress and a majority of our state legislators and governors across the nation. The American people spoke, giving our party a clear mandate to reduce government, revive our economy, strengthen our national security, protect our borders, and reestablish America's preeminence in the world. Mrs. Holloway, your participation in this post-election audit and analysis effort is a critical step in countering the Democrats' plan to undermine and reverse the intent and outcome of this historic Republican victory. It represents the first critical phase of an intensive campaign to solidify and build our victory in order to fulfill President Trump's promise to make America great again and truly move our nation in a new direction. Your involvement is important because you represent the bedrock of our party. Confirming that our contact information and voting records for our most reliable Republicans are accurate and up-to-date is a foundational step, as is replenishing the funds to sustain our party's infrastructure and implement our essential candidate research and voter registration campaigns. This is where I start to smell a rat. Your individual support from key Republican leaders such as yourself is the backbone of these vital, ongoing development, outreach, and funding efforts. So please tear off and return the attached election audit Republican affiliation confirmation card today, and include, if possible, your voluntary 2017 Republican affiliation contribution of $50, $75, or even $100 to support this important effort. Thank you. Ronna McDaniel, Chairwoman of the Republican National Committee. Now, all that legit took me out loud about 4 minutes to read. Okay? That was 6 paragraphs long. This page that I hold in my hand is 4-fold. And that is about 8.5 by 12. That's about legal size. All right? 90% of people will not read that. That is the very definition of TLDR. Too long, didn't read. What their eye does go to is the very bottom of the document. And I'll post pictures of this online, by the way, once I black out the personal information. And it says, below the tear, Election Audit Republican Affiliation Confirmation Card. Republican National Committee, 310 First Street, Southeast Washington, D.C., 20003, www.gop.com. Mark, if correct. Legal name. It gives my wife's legal name. Primary street address. It gives our street address. And it gives the spot for corrections. Almost like it's official. Party affiliation. Republican. Okay. Membership status. Lapsed. This is the part where most people will go, what the thing? Are you kidding me? Lapsed? Lapsed. So evidently I'm not a Republican anymore, according to this document. If I were to read this document, I apparently have to pay to be a Republican. I have to send in money. How about that? I have to send in money in order to be considered an official member of the Republican Party. Now, from my understanding, I have to register to be a Republican. I don't have to send them a red cent. I have to register Republican, vote Republican, and potentially participate, or not, in the party. Which I have. I have been a precinct committeeman in the past. I regularly have met with state and local level officials and members of the party. I'm active in the Republican Party. And I am an active conservative and a constitutionalist. So I'll say to you, Ronna McDaniel, and Reince Priebus and any other talking head that gets sat at the top of the table of the Republican Party, the Republican National Convention, I should say. Last year, you sent what amounted to an invoice to my family, which stated that our membership had expired and that we needed to send in money in order to re-up. So this year you changed around your tactics a little bit. You cleverly disguise it as a survey of how we voted. Now, most people don't know that if you vote in a primary, those records are public, that you affiliated with the Republican Party. You can go online and you can find me as a Republican. Very, very easily. Those records are readily available. There's no need for a survey of whether you are or are not a Republican. There's documentation of this. There's state, county, local, federal documentation of your party affiliation when you register to vote. So no, your audit, your election audit affiliation confirmation, it's subterfuge. This is designed to take advantage of Ma and Pa Kettle who think they owe somebody money now. Who go, oh no, dear. Apparently we're no longer Republicans. Our membership has lapsed. I believe in the platform of the traditional Republican Party. I believe in conservatism. I believe in constitutionalism. I believe in small government. And if I were just to read the text of this document by itself, I'd say I probably agree with everything on it. I really would. Especially the bits about needing ongoing outreach and funding efforts and to develop grassroots, and the fact that we have to defend against a Democratic backlash in 2020. I agree with a lot of this. But at the end of the day, people aren't going to bloody read it. People are going to look at it. It looks like a bill. It looks like I owe you money. Oh, gee, I better send something. It's dishonest. It's insulting to the intelligence of the American voter. Republican Party, you need to knock this crap off. Every year I get something like this, I raise a ruckus. Well, you know what? Now I got a dang podcast. So I'm going to raise a ruckus here. You're insulting the intelligence of the American voter. Cut it out. Makes me sick that people who are supposed to represent my political interests stoop to this base level, juvenile, half-assed marketing attempt. It's beneath you. Disgusts me. Bloody pathetic. This is why Barack Obama was elected twice. This is why the Republican Party doesn't know the first dang thing about grassroots development. The establishment is blind, deaf, and dumb when it comes to this. This is why the Republican Party should never have shunned the Tea Party movements and the Patriot movements, because they don't know how to do this without resorting to these dishonest and underhanded tactics that dishonor everything that the party of Lincoln, the grand old party, once stood for. Calvin Coolidge would read this, rise from the grave, and kick the crap out of you. Silent Cal have a word or two to say about that one, I guarantee it. Because Silent Cal looked up at Mount Rushmore and said, no, not me. Because the president is not a god. The president is not a king. The president is a servant. And the Republican Party, you are all servants of the people. You don't get to send them a damn bill. We pay that one every week out of our paychecks. Best be grateful So on that note, take a quick break. When we return, wrap up, and we're going to set things up for next week. Thanks for sticking in this long, enduring my withering rant. We'll be back after a brief message. You're listening to The HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. Hey everyone, this is Matt Holloway, and I hope you're enjoying our podcast so far. It's been exciting putting this together for you, and I'm looking forward to many more to come. I did want to let you know that in setting up the HoloNet and getting everything launched here, we've gone ahead and set up a page on Patreon.com. Now, if you haven't heard of Patreon, Patreon is a website that's similar to other crowdfunding sources that allows you to support on a month-to-month basis those sources, those artists, and those groups that you really care about and that you're passionate about. And I hope that we can ignite passion in a lot of people to become more involved in the political process, and also to become involved in the conversation and to keep that political dialogue alive. So I'd like to humbly ask you today to consider becoming a patron of the HoloNet on Patreon.com, and you can access that at Patreon.com/TheHoloNet. We have various levels of patronage. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month, which unlocks exclusive content for the Patreon community, such as a feed of patron-only content. Then you have a $5 option, which gives you behind-the-scenes access to blog about the different inspirations that we have. It'll give you access to patrons-only polling. And then we have a $10 option, which gives you a signed digital poster plus everything else. $20 option, which gives you naming the credits on the site and all other rewards. And we even have a segment sponsor package available on Patreon, which is $125 a month, which entitles you and your business to a 60-second ad as a segment sponsor during the podcast, of course, subject to content approval. So if you would like to become a patron of the HoloNet, we would be greatly thankful to you, and it's going to go toward a solid cause of generating this sort of millennial constitutional conservative content that is so lacking in our media today. So thank you for your time, for your consideration, and for being a part of the HoloNet. Here we hold the line against the night, and the millennial conservative resistance begins here.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
Thanks for sticking around. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast on Lanterns Media Network. I'm Matt Holloway. So according to a story on theblaze.com, it appears that a recent poll by Morning Consult and Politico, I've gone ahead and pulled up the poll itself, says that 43% of Americans believe that Congress should begin impeachment proceedings against President Donald Trump. 45% say no, 13% say they don't know or don't have an opinion. The exact question is worded, as you may know, the first step toward removing a president from office is impeachment. Do you believe Congress should or should not begin impeachment proceedings to remove President Trump? Now, I want to clarify something with everyone listening. President Trump has thus far not committed or been convicted of, I'll say he has not been indicted of or convicted of, any crimes that would justify impeachment. There are, at this time, no terms under which the president could be impeached. Okay? Article 2 of the United States Constitution states in Section 4 that the President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. So that, for the record, is treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. High crimes in this context typically meaning a felony charge. So, at this point, has the president actually committed an obstruction of justice? Congress is investigating. Prior to that, let's see, we have the Senate Intelligence Committee, we have the House Intelligence Committee, we have the FBI investigation, which is still ongoing, and now we have a special prosecutor investigating. Thus far, all this time spent, there is no charge. There is no indictment. They're taking testimonies, but again, no charge and no indictment. So why is it that with nothing yet on the table, 43% of the American public is saying they would like to impeach the President of the United States? For the same reason that nearly the same amount, it was in the high 40s, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, wanted to impeach President Barack Obama. Because we have become so split and so divided that at this point we just want to impeach a president because we don't like him. Now, don't get me wrong. Throughout his 8 years of presidency, President Barack Obama did plenty, in my opinion, which could warrant impeachment. But impeachment wound up being ultimately impossible. In basically putting it to Eric Holder, the Attorney General of the United States, to investigate himself for contempt of Congress, I feel that was a grievous miscarriage of justice. And that by itself would justify the impeachment of the president and the impeachment of the Attorney General. There were several offenses that I believe were worthy of impeachment. The fact that the president orchestrated, knowingly and willfully, an extended campaign to lie to the American people by describing the Obamacare tax or fee as both to Congress in order to get them to pass it, and to the American people to keep the American people from screaming and revolting, which we pretty much did anyway. The Obamacare fine was charged as a fine. It was described as a fine. That's the way they passed the law. But in order for it to be legal, it had to be a tax to the Supreme Court. And it was successfully argued as a tax before the Supreme Court. You can't have it both ways. I feel that was impeachable. So these are things that are impeachable offenses. I feel that in the act of passing Obamacare as a fee and then defending it to the Supreme Court as a tax is unto itself, is perjury, 1, and is fraud, 2. You are knowingly and willfully lying and cheating, lying to and cheating the American people. So you don't get to impeach a president with no charges. You don't get to impeach a president because you don't like him. You have to catch him doing something wrong first. Now, President Barack Obama provided that time and again. But with President Trump, the jury's not even out yet. The case isn't even on the table yet. The investigations must proceed. So impeach this. Thanks for sticking with us. I'm Matt Holloway for Lanterns Media Network. Good night, and God bless.